for our fourth Alabama learning trip. We're super grateful to have all of you here. We have a few really special guests here to share their experiences on previous learning trips. And then we will have, and then we're going to have Will, who is our Southern director, dive into some more themes and details of the trip this year. Alrighty. Just admitting some more folks. Um, so without further ado, I think that's everyone. I'd like to pass it to Meg Fosk, our first guest, who is a managing director for U.S. Program and Policy for the Rockefeller Foundation.
Sony, it's nice to see so many familiar faces and friends. I just wanted to say a few things. I had a chance to go with JMA a couple of years ago on the Alabama learning trip. And so I just wanted to share a few thoughts about the value that I got out of it with you all. Maybe a few key points. The first one is I think we all understand intersectionality at the intellectual level, like why racial, environmental justice, economic justice are intersectional and overlapping issues. But a key thing for me was being there in place and seeing kind of viscerally, concretely in people's lives how these things show up. To be, at a Superfund site that was across from a school, to see a city like Anniston that's shaped by contamination, industrial decline, some real bloody chapters in our civil rights history, to now have these good jobs that are created in a clean energy manufacturing and an e-bus facility. So for me, it was not just understanding how these issues intersect, how they're really present in people's lives, but that JMA has an intentional strategy for how um, you can make real improvements in people's lives across all of these issue areas. I think the other thing is seeing JMA's kind of theory of change in action. They have this pipeline for how you go from research to organizing to actual real change. And what I saw when I was there is how data that they were collecting on worker conditions. And so there it was how car manufacturing were using incarcerated individuals for labor, how they were using that research as both an organizing tool and then a way to translate that research and that organizing into real enforceable change through community benefits agreements that they secured with companies. Um, I think another thing that was just really impressive is to see how the workforce was changing and kind of challenging our assumptions about how we can work across what seems to be at the national level, these really insurmountable divides. So I was really struck. We were in a meeting with the New Flyers shop stewards, and one was this, young man who was a self-identified Trump supporter. One was an older man who was a Black man, and they were just on the same page about what the community benefits agreement, what the union meant to them and their shop. And I think that also speaks to the last thing, which is how you leverage these national strategies. So you start with a procurement agreement in Los Angeles and you think about how that creates good jobs in Alabama. And I think what JMA does so well and became really obvious when I was in Alabama was really building that local talent, having organizers, meeting people where they're at, understanding the local conditions, but then leveraging the the power that comes from being a national organization and being able to say, we have this procurement contract, this creates a hook for good jobs in this other place. So I'll leave it at that, but that's what I took away from the learning trip.
Thank you so much, Meg. And I forgot to mention, but we will have time for a Q&A at the end, so you will be able to have a chance to get your questions answered. Um, Thank you so much again. I'd like to pass the mic to Cassandra McKee, who is the co-director of the Worker Power Funder Group.
Great. Thanks, Sony, and thanks, Meg. Wholeheartedly agree with everything that Meg just shared. And I'll add a few more thoughts. So I was able to participate in the tour last fall, or I guess a little over a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And it was an exceptional experience and really unlike most other site visits that I've participated in. I think, as funders, we often design and curate site visits ourselves. And usually it's with the purpose to communicate, our particular strategy or theory of change. And what was unique about this trip is it's really an opportunity to experience place through the eyes of a grantee and their partners. And I found that shift, from away from me as the funder storyteller to the grantee as storyteller was just incredibly valuable. It's a real opportunity to go deep with Jobs to Move America's staff, their leaders on a singular campaign. And like Meg said, to put it in the context of history and place. And I was really impressed by the JMA team's ability to tell that story about the work as well as, the particular cultural and historical struggles and significance of where we were and, how the campaign fit into that story. They really helped me connect. It wasn't just history, but it was also economics and policy and organizing. And as Meg said, also the lived experience of folks on the ground in a way that just made it all feel, much more tangible and interconnected. I also really appreciated hearing directly from workers, from community members. It just, gave me a much richer understanding of the realities that people are navigating, as well as the strategies that they're using to create change. And it really expanded, how I think about the opportunities and the constraints that, facing worker organizing and economic justice efforts in the region. And then I'll just emphasize too that because it's a learning tour of other funders and allies, that it was a great way to make connections with folks who were, funding similar things, but not the exact same things. So I learned a lot, particularly from some of my colleagues who attended, who are funding in the climate space and how they think about Jobs to Move America's work in that arena. Yeah, so thanks for having me on to give an opportunity to share my experience.
Thank you so much, Cassandra. And I'll pass it to our last speaker, Sarah Cleveland, who is a board member of the Russell Family Foundation.
Oh my gosh, I couldn't believe it. I mean, Megan Cassandra, you just hit every nail on the head. I went last year and I was just so thrilled to learn about Jobs to Move America. So I said, I'm serve on the board of the Russell Family Foundation, which is located in the Pacific Northwest. And while we're not doing anything in the South, we learned about JMA through a project called the Shareholder Engagement Project, where they're trying to engage asset owners, institutional investors who might hold shares of companies where they have campaigns. And then at the end of the presentation, I think Will did the presentation, he said, well, and we do a tour, a learning tour in Alabama. And even though we don't do it, the Russell Family Foundation doesn't do anything in Alabama, I went to the CEO and said, I really want to go on the tour because I've had a career, I'm now retired, but had a career in institutional investment management, always working up at the 30,000 foot level, never on the ground. And this provided me an opportunity of going to see to see things live and in person. And just as, both Meg and Cassandra spoke about seeing people in their lives and what they're struggling with, but the exciting part was also to see the results of the hard work. And I was very impressed that JMA may spend up to 2 years or more understanding who are the influencers, who are the people that really need to be connected with, as well as what are the workers' issues. So it's not, about them coming from the outside. It's really wanting to understand, what can be improved internally, and engaging really experienced academics in that work. So it's not a fly by night type of organization at all. So I was very impressed with that, and then to see that the results of the community benefits agreements at New Flyer that was able to be um, to be finalized, that they were able to start the first union in Alabama in 30 years. That's what I remember being told. And that just doesn't happen overnight. And it happens with a lot of planning and a lot of really talented and dedicated people. And we also had the experience of hearing from some of the union organizers and the workers and their day-to-day lives. And also hearing directly from the management as well. We heard both ends of the story, both sides of the story. So, and I thought it was very insightful that JMA engaged the the what do you call it, the buyers of the product. So large organizations, large municipalities like the city of LA that was going to spend millions of dollars on these electric buses to put pressure on the company. So again, I think that the in-depth research that JMA does, combined with the on-the-ground organizing, is really a recipe for success. So they gave us a little taste of that in having us do a little canvassing for them. I was stationed at a gas station where workers were coming for lunch to pick up some hot chicken, fried chicken, or whatever. But that was apparently what that particular gas station was known for. And we were asked, we had information about the survey that had been done previously with the workers, and would they like to learn more about that? So anyway, it gives you a little bit. Some people were very uncomfortable with that, being put on the spot in that way and having to approach people, sort of cold calling type of a thing. But it just gives you more feel for what, the hard work it is to do organizing. So I was very appreciative of that, and so enjoyed the opportunity that I actually went on the first Imperial Valley tour in California, where the Russell Family Foundation, we're very climate focused, but we're also focused in the agricultural sector as well. And that Imperial Valley, I always think of California as fruits and vegetables and food, but it's also called Lithium Valley. And so to see the organizing that they're doing there before the lithium mines have even been, the first shovel has been dug. So I don't know. It's a really tremendous experience. I'd highly recommend it for, I don't know what the individuals on the call are interested in getting out of it, but personally, I got a lot out of it, and professionally, to see things from potentially our grantees' perspective and how to go back and really understand more from the grantees' perspective. It was very helpful. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much to all of our speakers for such wonderful testimonials. I will go ahead and keep it moving along and pass it to Will.
Thanks, Sony. Well, my name is Will Tucker. I'm the Southern Director for Jobs Move America. I'm based in Birmingham, Alabama. I've been here for 5 years this week, so I've gotten, pretty enmeshed in our campaigns and everything. And this is the this will be the fourth year that we've done the learning trip. And I should just say, I just want to say, take a moment to thank you, Cassandra and Sarah and Meg, for just saying such lovely things. It occurs to me that one of the best aspects of this trip is that we get to be in relationship with folks in your world and in, connections that wouldn't happen maybe otherwise, not just with me as the director of our team, but also with our organizers. And so that's a real, I would put that forward as a real intangible of the trip that just really adds a lot to it for both us and then I think for our participants. But I will start off just in this information session by giving a very, very brief kind of overview and kind of situate us in the work. And the thing that I like to start off by saying in these kind of settings is just that Alabama, as many of us know from learning about the civil rights movement and remembering that movement and learning about it in school ever since then, as folks know, Alabama has a really deep history of organizing, and in some cases, very radical organizing. New models that were explored here, just as the kind of planter class was exploring new models of capital and extraction in our state, so too were organizers on the opposing side, experimenting and growing new amazing things here. And the history stretches far further back than just the 1960s. And that's one thing that we like to emphasize on this trip. Um, Namely because we are Southerners organizing Southerners on this team. And so a lot of us find a really deep well of inspiration from the work of Robin D.G. Kelley, who wrote the book Hammer and Hoe. And we'll come back to Dr. Kelley here in just a moment. But Dr. Kelley has chronicled the long, deep history of organizing here that includes multiracial organizing in the mines and the steel mills in Birmingham, dating back to the 1930s, and then the Sharecroppers Union in rural Alabama that centered stories that are centered largely in places like Camp Hill, Alabama, and more rural sides of our state that we'll also get to here in a moment. But so we love to integrate a lot of that history, the things that actually inspire us, the things that we didn't necessarily learn in school, but that we've learned as we've become organizers ourselves and are experimenting with a really novel form of organizing and tools and strategies that help stack the deck for that organizing as JMA. So I do want to go just a little bit deeper into why this work matters now under the Trump administration. And here's something under the second Trump administration. And here I typically point out that, Alabama has had an oppressive political climate for a really long time, for essentially all of my life. And the learnings here under that oppressive state government have resulted in these upshoots that have connected now through JMA and through the work of folks in our Western States team and our Midwest team have connected to organizing in those places in our organization under our roof and have led to some really amazing new things happening in Alabama, namely the community benefits agreement at New Flyer and Anniston and the success that we've had there, the organizing of those workers into one of the first manufacturing unions in decades in Alabama. And so, why is this work? What do we bring to the table? What code have we cracked about organizing under the Trump administration in this extremely oppressive environment that we're all living under now? And I think it's rooted in our analysis of um, the flows of capital, of money that goes back and forth largely through procurement in this country between progressive more progressive and union-friendly, especially states and cities, and the manufacturing of those products that take place largely in red states and rural areas in places like Alabama, but not just Alabama, upstate New York, rural Nebraska, and other places around the country. But we call those two regions the producing regions in Alabama that are producing the products, and the purchasing regions, places like Los Angeles and Chicago and New York City, that are buying millions and billions of dollars worth of goods through public procurement contracts. And that's really the backbone of our strategy, connecting the organizing, the on-the-ground organizing that's happening in the producing regions with really smart policy on procurement and contracts in blue states and blue cities around the country, which is important now because our model is at least somewhat insulated from the overreaches of the federal government right now. So because we are focusing on these relationships that are more or less unchanging, products are going to be manufactured in Alabama and places like it. They're going to be purchased in cities like Los Angeles and places like it, and we can continue that model even under an incredibly oppressive federal government. Um, and so we're seeing that now in the two campaigns that we have active in Alabama. And this year, I do want to point out will be a different trip, somewhat from previous years, because we will have two active campaigns this year, and I'll mention those very briefly. The first is a campaign to bring Neptune Technology Group, which folks from last year will remember in the town of Tallahassee, is a manufacturer of smart water meters, which are often viewed as climate resilience products, especially when they're purchased in incredibly dry areas of the country, like the Colorado River Basin. Those parts of the country have to purchase these kind of green economy products in order to stop water leakages, keep track of water use in their cities, and better manage the scarce resources, namely water, under kind of an increasing climate emergency. Those products are manufactured in Tallahassee, the smart water meters, and they're purchased in those purchasing regions, so places like Los Angeles and in Chicago and elsewhere. And that campaign is a really clear example of how we're tying those two regions together, both the policymaking in the purchasing regions and our direct organizing in the town of Tallahassee with Neptune workers in the community there. And the second campaign, I should say the Neptune campaign is an effort to bring Neptune to the table to negotiate a new community benefits agreement, the first since the New Flyer Community Benefits Agreement in Alabama, and essentially replicate the success that we've had in Anniston. So that's our first campaign to focus on. The second is our Recall Injustice campaign, Recall Injustice at Hyundai Kia. Now, Meg and a couple of other folks, I think, already mentioned our research over the past several years and presenting that research on for instance, the impact of Hyundai Kia's suppliers' use of incarcerated labor in their supply chains, the impact of that use of incarcerated labor on wages in Montgomery, Alabama, a place with its own deeply unique history of radical and experimental organizing dating back almost 100 years or more. And the how we're using that research to bring forward um, demands that Hyundai Kia come to the table and negotiate a community benefits agreement um, with our nationwide coalition to hold the company accountable. And this is happening as, I should point out, Hyundai is up for major public contracts. For instance, one division of Hyundai, Hyundai Rotem, will be competing, we believe, for a massive rail car contract in New York City in the coming years. And so you can start to see there again the application of certain strategies that we've developed. So on this trip, we'll be going to uh, all of these different places, and I'll outline the days very, very roughly, and then I'll be happy to turn it over and answer some questions. So on October 6th, um, we're going to be, and I believe it is optional to add an additional day early on to the trip, but we'd encourage you to come to that day so that you can see Anniston. And there you'll be able to see the New Flyer Community Benefits Agreement in action. We have a good working relationship with New Flyer management there, and in previous years, and I believe this year as well, we'll be able to have a tour of the facility, a heavy manufacturing environment, but it's really, really crucial to see for one particular reason. And I'll mention that here as just a teaser. The New Flyer Community Benefits Agreement completely changed the face of that workforce. I toured the factory for the first time immediately after inking the Community Benefits Agreement in 2022, and I saw a lot of folks who look like me if I were older. I saw many, many older white men working in that factory. And we had heard previously, and we had brought to the attention of New Flyer repeatedly, that there was a good old boy system there. There was a system where to get hired at New Flyer, you had to know someone, you had to essentially have a buddy that worked at the plant who could, pass your application along. And that resulted in, even in a city that is 53% Black, you had a largely white workforce. I toured the facility the subsequent year and especially the year after that in 2024, and you could just see the change right in front of you. Under the community benefits agreement with New Flyer, we have certain targeted hiring goals. By the time the last time I toured the facility, I saw many, many more people of color, many, many more women in the factory working in all different kinds of jobs, wearing their union shirts and their union buttons, and working together to create a new organized union in Alabama. We typically do a tour followed by an information session from both me and one of the managers at the New Flyer facility, where we go over some of the data behind that kind of visual change that you can see. It's also just quite a cool tour to see a bus, be from welded steel on up through a finished product, and the labor of the workers that got it there. So on October 7th, on the second day, and the after our technical opening session, we'll be in Montgomery. So there we will focus on the first day on our Hyundai Kia campaign, the effort to bring Hyundai Motor Company to the table to negotiate a community benefits agreement that covers all of its suppliers and effectuate a different, accountability for a different set of problems that we're raising there, namely their use of incarcerated prison labor, their use of child labor, which has been well documented, well reported, and this really, really prevalent, this really high prevalence of workplace injuries that leave workers at these facilities just broken after decades of working with no retirement and no kind of prospect for um, uh, living a long and healthy life in retirement. Uh, that day, I think the highlight will be that we'll meet these workers. So we have a group of worker leaders from both the main Hyundai plant in Montgomery and a main critically important supplier called Mobis. We've done this in the past 2 years. We've had a question and answer panel session at the end of the day with those workers, and then some fellowship and breaking bread with them around that time too, which is really, really wonderful both for them and for all of our participants. Um, we'll also, I don't want to kind of spoil the surprise, although I will say, Sarah, we won't, I don't believe we'll be doing cold call canvassing this year. I think we will have an interactive research exercise that day that'll involve some really cool research that could literally help the campaign and is actually something that I've wanted to do if I've had enough time for quite some years. So with many hands on the trip, we'll be looking at that directly ourselves, and I'm quite excited about that. Um, the second day, or the third day, if you're on the optional Anniston day, we'll be in Tallahassee again, and we will go see Tallahassee, which is a small town about an hour to the east of Montgomery on the Tallapoosa River, and we're going to really emphasize the environmental aspects of this campaign and what we would be demanding at the table negotiating with Neptune in a new community benefits agreement. Um, Long story short, we're going to be looking at the company's potential possible impact on the river, its certain impact on the wastewater infrastructure in Tallahassee as a small town, with shades of the issue that you may be familiar with typically um, the issue in the Black Belt of Alabama with sewage and small municipal sewage systems, all wrapped in here. We're going to be visiting the city of Tuskegee, which is about a mile downriver from Tallahassee, and giving us opportunity to meet folks there and learn about the impact of industry on their drinking water systems. Um, we also may have an interactive, I say interactive in the sense that it could we can actually have you directly helping the campaign meeting with certain public officials in Montgomery who we may be able to, with this group of folks, get into the room, ask some tough questions of in a way that will really help the campaign. I'm excited for that as well. And then the final day, and to close us out, we'll be back in Montgomery, learning directly from Dr. Kelly and a couple of our other community partners in Montgomery. We'll do a kind of fireside chat with questions and answers, and we'll talk about the legacy of not only that radical, experimental, exciting, although under extremely oppressive conditions, organizing that's happened for the past 100 years in Alabama, but we'll also be talking about what specific role, how can we really envision, our funder partners, our foundation partners as being not just kind of, um, transactional with us or in anything like that, but really partners with us in the work as part of the same block that's really trying to see Alabama change over the long term. And I'm very, very excited for that conversation. There's going to be much more to come there, but with one of the preeminent historians of this time and place, it'll be something really, really special. So I'm going to pause there. I think I went for about maybe a few minutes over what I was supposed to, but I'll hand it back to you, Sony, to rein me in.
Thank you so much, Will. I'm going to hand it over to Erin, who will go over some of the logistical details, and then we'll open it up for a Q&A.
Hello, everyone. My name is Erin Busby. I'm Senior Grant Associate here at JMA. Will gave us many details about kind of like what our day-to-day will look like. I'll add in a few more pieces of information, and then we'll let you all both answer questions to anyone who spoke and additional questions about the logistics. As Will mentioned, this will be a 4 full day trip. And what Will was mentioning around the optional day is if you have been on the trip previously, the tour of New Flyer and the Anniston Day is one that was included in previous years. And so folks who have experienced that day, we've given the option to not do that day again. Though we would encourage that you do because it is just a super fun and interesting experience to have. Anyone who will be new to the trip, we would love for you to come for that day. And so it'll start with an open reception on the first day. And then as Will mentioned, there's 4 full days of information, of tour. We will load a bus every day from the hotel where we're all stay together. And that bus will take us to tour, we will hear speakers, we'll have programming, we'll go to meals throughout the day. There will be time for rest and questions and conversations and networking throughout that time. The trip total cost is $3,600, and I think all of you have received an information packet that includes that information. That includes 4 nights hotel stay, all ground transportation, as well as all meals throughout the trip, all the speakers, all the activities that we will do, and we are open to talking a little bit more about like what that cost structure includes if you're interested in knowing more, and what the price looks like if you are opting out of the first day. Sony, did I miss anything that we'll need for logistics? Just want to make sure I cover my bases here.
Yeah, no worries. No, I don't think so. Yeah, just want to emphasize, the price is reduced if you do decide not to come to the opening reception night and the Anniston Day and are just coming for to hear about what's new at JMA. If you have come before, it is a reduced cost, and I think that is on the flyer as well. But other than that, I think you covered it. So yeah, I guess let's open it up for a Q&A. Does anybody have any questions?
Feel free to raise a virtual hand and we'll call on you in the order in the queue.